I stepped into the narrow examination room with a quiet breath, the soft hum of fluorescent lights buzzing faintly above me. I adjusted the clipboard in my hands, trying to steady the subtle tension that had settled in my chest for reasons I couldn't quite explain. Assisting patients had long become second nature to me, but something about this particular moment felt different, lingering beneath my awareness. As I glanced toward the bed where Mr. Warren was already seated, his posture rigid and his expression unusually guarded, I offered a polite smile. I greeted him calmly, asking how he was doing, keeping my tone warm yet professional. He nodded, but a flicker in his eyes hinted at unease. The air in the room felt heavier than usual. As I moved closer to prepare him for the routine check, adjusting the monitor and smoothing the gown, I found myself hyper-aware of every movement, every sound, every small shift in his body language, as though my instincts were urging me to stay alert. When an awkward moment occurred due to the way the gown shifted unexpectedly, I quickly averted my gaze, reminding myself of my training and professionalism. The brief disruption seemed to ripple through the room, amplifying the tension that neither of us acknowledged out loud. When the door opened momentarily with another nurse stepping in before quickly excusing herself, it only added to the strange, unsettled atmosphere. Mr. Warren was visibly embarrassed while I tried to maintain composure, reassuring him gently and continuing with the preparation as if nothing unusual had happened. Yet even then, a small, uneasy thought lingered in my mind, one that I pushed aside as I stepped back to give space for the doctor's arrival. As soon as he entered and began his routine questions, I took the opportunity to quietly exit, the door closing behind me with a soft click. It felt almost like a release, though the lingering discomfort followed me down the hallway, refusing to fade as I moved through the rest of my shift. Later, I received a message that Mr. Warren had specifically requested me for his follow-up. A knot formed in my stomach, tightening with uncertainty. I questioned why he would ask for me again, whether it was coincidence or something more deliberate. By the next day, I paused outside his room, taking a steadying breath before stepping inside, determined to keep everything strictly professional and controlled. Yet the moment our eyes met, I sensed a shift, a subtle confidence replacing the earlier awkwardness. When he spoke in a tone that felt too personal for the setting, I redirected the conversation, firmly back to his care, maintaining a boundary that I hoped would be clear, though his quiet persistence unsettled me, making it difficult to ignore the tension. The underlying tension seemed to grow with each interaction. Then a woman entered the room unexpectedly, her presence sharp and observant. Her gaze moved between us with a quiet intensity that spoke volumes. I instinctively excused myself, stepping out into the hallway, where I finally allowed myself to exhale, realizing almost immediately that she must be his wife, and that whatever dynamic existed between them carried its own weight, one that I had inadvertently stepped into. As the day continued, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn into something complicated and uncomfortable, especially when further messages came through requesting my presence again, prompting me to approach my supervisor in hopes of being reassigned. Those staffing limitations offered little reassurance, leaving me to face yet another encounter with growing resolve to establish firm boundaries. When I entered the room once more, I kept my distance, my tone measured and direct, making it clear that my role was strictly professional. Even as Mr. Warren attempted to blur that line with subtle remarks and lingering looks that made my instincts sharpen with caution. Though I stood my ground, the situation escalated in small but significant ways, including moments that felt too deliberate to dismiss as accidental, reinforcing my determination to remain guarded. When his wife appeared again, her presence cutting through the tension with a calm yet piercing authority, I sensed that she understood more than she let on, her silence carrying a weight that stayed with me long after I left the room. In the days that followed, I did everything I could to avoid further interaction, adjusting my schedule, keeping to different areas, trying to restore normalcy. Yet the situation persisted, culminating in a confrontation near the end of a shift when Mr. Warren approached me outside the usual clinical setting, his tone more familiar than appropriate, prompting me to assert my discomfort clearly and firmly, even as he attempted to downplay the seriousness of his actions. Though the moment was interrupted by the presence of another staff member, the underlying tension remained unresolved, pushing me to once again request reassignment. Circumstances continued to place me in his path, leading to a final encounter that felt heavier than all the others combined. His words suggested a complete misunderstanding of the situation, forcing me to stand even firmer in my position, rejecting any implication of mutual involvement. Just as the moment threatened to escalate further, his wife appeared once again, her timing almost uncanny, her expression controlled yet undeniably intense. As I stepped away, putting physical distance between myself and the situation, I realized that this was no longer just an uncomfortable series of interactions, but something deeper, something that carried implications beyond the surface. When she later approached me privately, her tone shifting from accusatory to revealing, I found myself confronted with information that painted a far more complex picture of her husband's behavior, suggesting patterns that extended beyond me, hinting at a history I had never anticipated, leaving me standing at a crossroads between walking away entirely or becoming involved in something far more complicated. The weight of the choice settling heavily on my shoulders as I stood alone, trying to process everything that had unfolded, wondering how something that began as a routine day at work had spiraled into a situation that now felt impossible to ignore.